All right, in absence of a gavel, I'll bring this meeting to order. Thank you all for coming to the North Liberty Community Center. We anticipate this will be the last time we do a joint entities meeting in the basement of the community center. 2 years from now, we'll have a brand new city hall for you to all join us over in there. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that. I think as tradition, we'll go around and make introductions. We have some new faces, and I'll go first. I'm Chris Hoffman, the mayor of North Liberty.
I'm Ashley Bermel, City Council, North Liberty.
Real quick, Derek told me, he's with NLTV, that we won't hear each other through an amplified system. If you have a comment to make, though, drive it into the microphone so that it can be picked up on audio. But for these introductions, I suppose we're okay. Sorry, Ashley.
Brent Smith, Councilor with North Liberty.
Mayor Bruce Teague, Iowa City.
Supervisor Roy Sam Porter.
Molly Abraham, Iowa City School Board.
J.P. Clausen, Iowa City School Board.
Charlie Eastham, Iowa City School Board.
Christina Malone, Iowa City School Board.
Lisa Williams, Iowa City School Board.
Hi everybody, Matt Degner, Iowa City Schools.
Rakisha Harrington, North Liberty City Council.
Johnson County Supervisor John Green.
Vivek Maharaj, Johnson County Board of Supervisors.
Rod Sullivan, Johnson County Board of Supervisors.
Lori Goodrich, Coralville City Council.
Megan Foster, City of Coralville Mayor.
Laura Burgess, Iowa City City Council.
Maka Pilcher, Hayek School Board, Iowa City School Board.
Megan Alter, Mayor Pro Tem, Iowa City.
Sean Harmson, Iowa City City Council.
Eric Siddig, North Liberty City Council.
Lisa Green Douglas, Johnson County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, everyone.
And we have one behind.
Yeah, we got one behind us here.
Hi, I'm Coralville City Council.
We got to make room for her up here.
There's room over here.
What's up here?
You know it.
It's in Coralville City Council.
And University Heights, stuff is on, but I don't need to sit up there.
That's what I used to say too.
Yes, you do.
So, see what Sean's doing? That's all right. We got space. We got space.
Yeah, we'll make
Put a chair here.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, sir.
I told Sean jokingly that we've got a short agenda, that this probably won't take too long. So we'll see. I'm just kidding.
It's a very pointed.
We had a good discussion last week, Lisa and I did. So we've got a couple of important things to talk about. And so without further ado, I'll turn this over to Matt and Lisa.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. I really appreciate everyone allowing some time on the agenda today to talk about something that I think is really exciting and the potential is compelling, and that's innovation in our communities with the local option sales tax. I want to kick off by just doing a brief overview of the local option sales tax, so we're all kind of on the same page about what it is and what it isn't. In Iowa, the state tax rate is 6%. And then by statute, municipalities and other entities are allowed to increase their sales tax rate to 7%. And it's that 1% increase that's called the local option sales tax, or LOST for acronyms. Most jurisdictions in Iowa actually have a LOST in place. Last I read, 835 cities, municipalities, and unincorporated counties have a LOST in place in their jurisdiction. I also think it's important to cover what's not taxed by law. So when we talk about an increase in sales tax, it's not going to be an increase on all items that Iowans in our communities purchase. Groceries are exempt, prescription drugs, medical devices, transportation services are all exempt from any type of increase in funding. There's a few other things too, but these four are kind of the four primary drivers of what's not impacted at all by a local option sales tax. What can you use loss for? Any lawful purpose. So you can really use it for a broad array of activities. However, the legislature also mandated that if you pass a LOST after 2019, you do have to set aside 50% of your revenue generated for that for property tax relief. And so when you're thinking about what we can use revenue for, by law, 50% of that has to go back to the community in the form of property tax relief. How is your municipality's revenue generated? Well, again, it's by statute. Iowa Administrative Code 270.8 sets out a fairly complex formula to determine how each municipality would earn their portion of loss. It's based on two driving factors. First of all, the population of your municipality, and that's really what's going to drive most of your revenue generation, because 75% of that is going to be based on the population of your jurisdiction. But also at play is your property tax levies. And so that's 25% of your allocation is based on the amount of property tax levied in your jurisdiction. You do that fancy math, and then you come up with the actual value each year that your jurisdiction would receive from lost. Here's where we are in Johnson County. The jurisdictions on the right all have enacted loss. So that's Hills, Lone Tree, Solon, Swisher, and West Branch. The other municipalities, as well as unincorporated Johnson County, do not currently have a lost in place. Although I did flag there that Tiffin is anticipated to put a lost on their ballot this year. Potential revenue. When I talk about potential revenue from here on out, you're going to hear this $18 million estimate. Project Better Together put together an estimate that if North Liberty, Coralville, Iowa City, Hills, and unincorporated Johnson County, those 5 entities all passed a local option sales tax, it would generate approximately $18 million of revenue in each year. Now, your city managers and the county manager are able to get a better estimate about exactly how much lost revenue could be generated in your jurisdiction by just reaching out to the Department of Revenue. They're happy to provide a information on what you would have generated last year if your jurisdiction had a lost in place. But right now, it's going to be approximately 18 million if all 5 of the entities were to pass a loss together. So what does that look like? Here's our pie graph. Please don't make fun of my pie graph skills. They don't improve, I promise you. But 50%, as I mentioned, has to be designated for property tax relief. This leaves a $9 million or 50% for innovation in our community. And what we'd like to talk about today is a proposal that ICCSD would put forward of how to use 10% of that revenue, or approximately $1.6 million. What the proposal is going to be is a 4-year-old enhanced preschool experience for all students in Iowa City community school districts. And before we get into the nitty-gritties about what that enhanced experience looks like, I want to talk about why preschool, okay? So 4-year-old preschool is a game changer for kids. It increases, and their families. It creates and increases economic stability. It reduces parental stress. It reduces food insecurity. It improves mental health. It improves overall health of children. It benefits children's developments and learning, and it promotes their school readiness. And these are benefits that every single student who goes to a 4-year-old preschool program realizes. So every single student is going to realize a benefit from going to a 4-year-old preschool. But when we look at some of the more marginalized kids in our communities that we serve, those kids benefit even more from a strong and well-done 4-year-old preschool experience. The research has found that children who have early experiences with economic scarcity and economic insecurity make significant gains when they have access to a 4-year-old preschool. Our dual language learners also see tremendous gains, not only in their English language proficiency, but in other academic skills. And so while preschool, again, is great for everyone, it's particularly important and essential and beneficial for some of our more marginalized kids in the community. To put it into economic terms or dollars and cents terms, the studies have shown that for every dollar that we invest in preschool, in preschool to a student early on, it's going to yield $7 to $17 of long-term economic gain for that student. And that's measured by things such as increased high school graduation rates, more access to college, access to better jobs upon graduation. And so investing in kids when they're young pays dividends when they're old. But preschool doesn't just help the families and students that participate in the program. We also see an economic benefit to the community at large. I think we all have heard that since COVID, we are hemorrhaging childcare jobs. In fact, over 100,000 jobs in childcare have been lost since February of 2020. The United States as a whole is estimated to lose $57 billion annually just in lost revenue, wages, and productivity related to persistent childcare issues. And why I really like this slide, what I think is most impactful about it, is this bottom line about this $7 billion of loss. You know, when we talk about money lost because of childcare insecurity, we're not talking about just the families that experience those childcare difficulties, and we're not talking about just the employers who suffer lost productivity because their employees can't come to work. The community as a whole, sees a $7 billion loss of that $57 billion. We all suffer. It doesn't matter if you're 80, it doesn't matter if you're 10, it doesn't matter if you have 5 kids or 0 kids. Everyone suffers when we have issues with childcare in the community. And so by investing in childcare, we help every single person that lives in our community. So more local is, what are we seeing in Iowa? Well, we almost lost $1 billion last year in Iowa as a result of childcare breakdowns. And we've seen that the jobs lost by women by the pandemic are recovering way slower than the jobs held by men, 77% slower. And then specifically in Johnson County, we have 2.3 children that need care for every 1 slot available. So this is a nationwide problem, it's an Iowa problem, and it's a Johnson County problem. And again, the economic incentives of having a strong preschool program are also played out. There's some lessons learned from California's investment in early childcare. So back in 2017 and 2018, the state of California invested $5.1 billion into enhancing their early childcare programs and offerings in the state. And what they saw is each dollar invested generated as much as $1.88 back, so almost double for their economic activity. It increased the participation in the labor force, so we have more people able to work jobs in our community, and then it decreased employee absences by a significant amount, and it also reduced turnover in those same employers by a significant amount. So preschool is great for kids, it's great for families, but it's also great for the economic strength of our community. It's really something that's going to help every single person in town. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Degner, and he's going to kind of talk you through what we're doing now in preschool, our pilot, and where we hope to go.
Sure. So for districts in Iowa, they're funded for a halftime, basically a halftime experience. And so we receive funding for a teacher for a portion of that day. It's not a 1.0 like our other students. And we're funded on a per pupil basis from the state. Well, for every preschool student we have, that's a 0.5 that we get. And so typically what you see throughout the state are half-day preschool programs. And you can tell why that's problematic for parents, right? That being able to pick up, drop off in the middle of the day, that's not a very viable solution. So our ability to serve students on a wide scale in that scenario doesn't work for everybody. But what we currently have, we serve 384 students in the AM and about 167 students in the PM. So we serve roughly about 589 preschool students. 38 students attend the all-day preschool pilot, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But just to give you a frame of reference, our classes have typically been around 1,100 kids, right? Or about 1,000. We're more recently seeing maybe numbers in the thousands. But you can tell we're not reaching every student by any means with that preschool model. In this year, the board's had a goal about trying to enhance our preschool options and in our preschool offerings. And so this year, what we tried to do was pilot a full day experience. Now, that's not a full day of typical preschool that you might think about. We still only receive the funding for a half a teacher's day, right? So they're only getting preschool education for a portion of that. But what we put on the other side of that was a wrap experience. So basically childcare, they're on site for the other portion of it. So the student could stay all day at the school building and the parent not have to worry about that midday drop off or pickup. And we did that at the sites of Shimmick and Wickham, and that was intentional because of some of the funding dynamics that go with this about who could pay and who couldn't pay. As we tried to work out this pilot model, the district's financial position, we weren't in a position to know. We were in a little tenuous spot about knowing, okay, what campuses can we try these on, and making it sure that it doesn't upset our budget in the school district. So students in this model can attend from 7:30 to 5:30. During this time, they attend either an AM or PM session of preschool. And then the other part, like I said, is really the wrap care. And we did an RFP for that, and Champions is our provider of who serves those kids during that time that they're not in the preschool portion with our teacher. So essential elements of the pilot: provider of the wrap care must accept child care assistance for families that qualify. And that's the element I was talking about. If we'd went to a campus where we'd had a high number of that child care assistance, we weren't sure how that would play out financially and how good the provider would be about working through that. So we intentionally chose a couple campuses where the number of students on child care assistance wouldn't necessarily be a high number at that time, as we're trying to work through the pilot in the first year about standing that up. But we made sure that Champions would be willing to accept that, because we knew that would be a critical part of the plan moving forward. All students were accepted, and the wrap care must be affordable. Those were kind of our driving focuses of the pilot. So the pilot is serving families that qualify for child care assistance at both Shimmick and Wickham. Even though that number's not high, we do have families at both sites on child care assistance. For families that do not qualify for child care assistance, the wrap costs about $525 a month. So if you think about, that's a full day experience for students at 4 years old compared to what you would pay in some other places. It is a greatly reduced cost at $525 for every day, and they're basically paying for the half of the day. But if you think about that full day experience, if you've written checks along those lines, that is a greatly reduced rate. The demand was so significant that we opened a second room at Shimmick.
It's been a few years. So what is that? What is that number that
We think that's
one would
about
typically
50%
pay?
typically about what they
Okay.
pay.
Thank you.
Lisa might have a
Yeah.
better statistic on that.
In Johnson County, the average cost of early child care for a family of 2 is $2,000 a month.
Okay,
So
thank
under
you.
this model, they'd pay $1,000 a month, so it's about 50% reduction.
Thank you.
So we did do a second room at Shimmick. We hadn't planned on that. The other essential element probably of deciding the sites was just who had room. That's another thing for the district to think about, is where we have classroom space to serve students, because we do have a lot of half-day preschool options going, and we kind of alternate those. They do the half-day in the morning and one in that classroom, and then they have the half-day in the afternoon. And so we had to find some campuses also with sufficient capacity to be able to hold that. So pilot expansion, we would like to expand the pilot, a full day option for all students that includes a half day at preschool and wrap care for the remainder. And we'd like it to really work on the fact that if they qualify for child care assistance and FRL, that it would be a zero cost to do that. And so we'd like that to be a free experience, obviously, for those families. But for families that could pay, we would still want them to pay. And that's part of what we tried to work on the model this year. With the families that could pay the $525, could we make that solution viable for us to basically subsidize the cost of the families that could not pay? Preschool funding. So when we looked at our, let me just get oriented to this. It kind of threw off the formatting here a little bit. So 1.6 of the lost funding would support the preschool initiative. And so this is how our funding breaks down for what we would be asking for through lost. And so wrap care for the FRL families at about $1 million is what that would include. And then supplies and materials, as you see, transportation, meals and snacks, certified and classified staff. You can tell that's our big number on the other portion where we don't receive funding from the state. Administrative costs, we would have to have some administrative help and a facilitator run the preschool program if we were going to go this large. And then, so the estimated funding, we targeted about the $1.8 million, and that could change based on enrollment. I think is the caveat there. Depending on what that enrollment actually looks like, that number is going to change, right? If it's everybody versus if it's half the people like we're seeing right now, that's going to be a different number. But that's what we would project out is, as far as the ask to be able to provide full day 4-year-old preschool experience in the Iowa City Community School District. And for all those reasons that Lisa talked about beforehand, we think that would be a great investment for our community. That would be a game changer for families. It would be a game changer for our students. I think if you've read any statistics on preschool, not just the economic ones she talked about, outcomes for kids and adults later in life are changed dramatically with that. And I think it fits with a lot of our goals. That's why the board's had it as a goal for a long time, because everything we try to do later is either easier or harder depending on what kind of experience they have at that 4-year-old time point.
So that brings us back to my third and final pie chart. The 10% of the lost revenue that would go to Iowa City for the preschool program would be game changing. But another, what I think, compelling part of this story is the 40% of revenue that's left over for municipalities to target for their needs. I think what COVID really laid bare to us is some of the structural inequities that really exist in our communities. And I want to commend each and every one of you for the way that you've used those ARPA funds. It's been really, I think, transformative to watch what you've done with that money. You've targeted food insecurity, housing affordability, children's mental health, child care initiatives. You've done really amazing things with that money that are making a difference in the community. And what LOST would provide, unfortunately, the ARPA funds are going to sunset. And so what LOST provides is a sustained source of funding to continue whatever programs you all feel are the most beneficial for your communities. I'm certainly not going to tell you how to spend your money. I know that you guys have really great ideas of how to do that, but this pool of revenues presents, I think, an opportunity for all of us to really get innovative with the services and programs that we're able to offer our community. So how does it happen? What are the mechanics? How do you get on the ballot? All of the municipalities can vote to place the initiative on the ballot. That's just the city councils or the board of supervisors. And then it goes to the public for a vote. It has to pass by a 50% threshold, and then it would be enacted. Timeline. The election cannot be held sooner than 84 days after notice is given to the county auditor, and no sooner than 60 days after notice of the ballot proposition is published by the auditor. So that's the time frame that we're working with. We certainly have time to get it on the ballot for this November, although it would take a lot of coordinated effort and will by you all, the governing bodies, to make that happen. But I just think that this presents a really impactful opportunity for all of us in this room to really do some change in this community. And so with that, I would love to have a discussion. I will say I'm going to make 2 asks today. The first ask is that you all do direct your city managers to reach out to the Department of Revenue and see what your jurisdiction would have received for lost funding last year. That, I think, is the first step in really putting a concrete number on what type of revenue we could expect to see. And then the second ask is if this is compelling and you're interested in moving forward, you schedule some time for a work session. Matt and I and the rest of the team would love to come and really talk nitty-gritty details beyond what we're going to be able to do today, but continue the dialogue and continue the discussion about what this looks like moving forward.
I have a few questions and comments. So you said that 18 million is projected to be generated from LOST if all of those entities participated. Half of that has to go to property tax relief, so that leaves 9 million, and you're asking for 10% of that, correct?
10% of the 18 million.
Oh, 10% of it. Okay, because I was going to say you're short here. Okay, interesting. All right. That answers that question. The second part is that the remaining money that isn't used for the Iowa City School District, and your selling point seems to be, and municipalities would be able to use this in such a way. And I guess, it's my job as the board liaison to the Clear Creek Amana School District to remind people that there are 11 school districts, 11 in Johnson County. And the next biggest one after Clear Creek Amana, or after Iowa City is Clear Creek Amana, but there's no guarantee that those entities would in fact use it towards preschool, and I think that I guess you have to start somewhere, but I really would love if we were going to go this route for it to be something that all of the 4-year-olds in the community would have the opportunity to participate in.
No, I agree. And I think that would be a great next step. The funding model that we've kind of thought up and proposed is that each municipality would contribute to cover the cost of students that attend just in their jurisdiction. So Iowa City would pay from their lost revenues the cost to cover the Iowa City students that are attending. Coralville would cover the Coralville students. North Liberty would cover the North Liberty students. What that means is that if Clear Creek Amana also wanted to move forward and enact a program like this, North Liberty, that has Clear Creek Amana students in it, they could also choose, if they wanted to donate some of their revenue towards
Coralville
Clear
does
Creek
too.
Amana, as could Johnson County. The county, for the students that live in unincorporated Johnson County could take their portion and also not donate it, but provide it to the Clear Creek Amana School District. And so by doing this, what you're doing is you're opening the door to this type of funding model being available to Clear Creek to fund a program if they're able to stand up a program like this.
Not speaking to the funding, but just the program, I wholeheartedly support it. Lone Tree won a grant in 2009. They've had universal pre-K since then. I'm not sure how they fund it at present. I believe 3-year-olds attend for 3 hours, 2 days a week, and 4-year-olds attend 7 hours, 3 days a week. So a little bit different in the details, but the same sort of thing. But it is a universal program. But they don't provide, I don't believe, the wraparound supports that you folks are discussing. But it's been a big net positive for the community.
And I know we have Representative Mary Masher here, right? I thought I saw you, so she might be able to answer how this happened. But when Clear Creek Amana built North Bend, that was at that time they did it with anticipation that there was going to be universal 4-year-old preschool. I remember because the little toilets were way down here, and then all of those rooms had to be converted to kindergarten rooms. And I don't know what happened at the state level, if there was some action there that made it so that what we were anticipating with a lot of information ended up not being able to happen. And like I said, it could be this great thing that we put forth a lot of effort, time, and money, and then have someone else maybe make that not happen. Mary, do you remember the details on that?
I can just tell you real quickly, I wish we had do-overs, because if we had a do-over, we would have done full day, right? 4-year-old preschool full day. We didn't set it up that way because the intent was to start with a halftime program and then increase it to full-time. As you know, that has not happened, and as a result, we haven't got 4-year-old universal preschool throughout the state. We have the voluntary preschool that is available for parents who choose to and can do that, because you're right, it's about picking up a kid in the middle of the day. It's almost impossible to do that, which is why the wraparound services are so critical. But unfortunately, like I said, if I had a do-over, it would have been a full-time, all day, every day, 4-year-old preschool, just like kindergarten. And unfortunately, that's not where we are.
And Mary, would it be safe to say that the prospects of the legislature moving to a full 4-year-old full day school are very close to 0%? Yeah.
So that's what I was going to mention, is that to some extent we're at a special time here. This is to some extent reactionary because our demographics are changing. When I say our, I do mean the Iowa City Community School District, which serves 14,000 students, which is a lot. And we are reacting to some real undermining of public education, and we're trying to figure out how to mitigate that. And it's a no-brainer that preschool, wraparound preschool will mitigate that. That is like Superintendent Degner said, all the stats will tell you that. This is our best way. I mean, all the people in this room count on public education to be the safety net of all these kids. Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build it. So when I think of selling point, I'm not selling, this is for everybody. We want to do this everywhere we can. And if there are other districts that need to be at the table so that we can encourage them to do it too. But geez, I'm not here to sell that. We should all be saying, what are we going to do to help make sure that we've got these numbers looking like they do with childcare and preschool? I mean, the facts are we're not getting supported financially by the state. And it is hitting all of us hard. So this is the golden ticket to help the little babies get started, to give them a fair shot, because we're not getting that fair shot anymore.
Can I add an amen?
Lisa, when you and I talked, you said that, and this is one of the things that I appreciated, is you said that this plan builds in substantially higher teacher salaries than we often see in some of the, I mean, part of the problem with some of the daycares is that the salaries are so low that nobody will do the work. But you were planning on addressing that, correct?
So each of the preschool teachers are certified teachers and are on our certified teaching pay scale, which is dramatically different than what they have access to. They also, it has full benefits, IPERS. I mean, they are public school teachers.
And that impacts the quality rating system too, correct?
That's my understanding, Rod, yes.
Can you just give a sense of what that is? I'm sure this is
The quality service?
No, the pay.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a couple of things. We're very appreciative of our partners that we have with preschool right now, and we do a lot of collaboration with them around standards and guaranteed viable curriculum, and we do have good partnerships in place with those folks. I think, you know, anytime we look for a consistent experience, right, when we have a group of teachers that are working together and delivering the same model and they're under our umbrella, then we do have some better standardization about rates of pay and that. And so our salary schedule, you know, I'm going to quote you the wrong number, but I mean, when an entry teacher starts, you're talking around that $40,000 number that they're coming in, all the way to, you know, we have staff up to $85,000, $90,000 depending on their years of service, you know, with the district and levels of education. So that's why it's hard to give you a specific number. But I know that is a struggle for private providers sometimes, right? It's about the rate they can pay. And obviously we have, you know, a set of qualifications we go with, you know, to be a certified teacher, licensed in the state, all of those things similar to those providers. But we would get them on that contract and on that pay schedule and do that. You know, and I know Lisa's had some conversations with childcare providers in the community about this too, because of the sense of we wouldn't want to put them out, right, about being able to do that. I think what it does do is it increases availability for those 0 to 3 spots that we do also struggle to have enough room for. And so it's really, again, a community effort to make sure, okay, if the public district can take on the 4-year-old problem, that really allows our private providers to look at the 0 to 3 issue and stand up great programming there like they do.
The way that we get to $525 a month for RAP is not by underpaying our employees. It's because the school district subsidizes the cost of the space and the electricity and the water, and we pay for the playground. We provide all of that, so the private provider doesn't have to worry about those overhead costs. And through that, we reduce the total monthly cost of the RAP.
So, from a community perspective, a parent perspective, an educator perspective, I 100% am in favor of this. From a person who has to make budgetary decisions for the county and wondering just what impact $9 million reduction in what is our largest source of revenue, and already knowing that the upcoming legislative session is going to be taking a lot of swipes at what we're going to be getting, what can be taxed, and then how much of that we can get. I'm really concerned, and I don't know, but I would love to see some sort of analysis on that impact to our budget and, you know, what we still have to provide with less money.
Sure. So remember, the lost revenue that goes back to property tax relief will not be a cut from anybody's budget. That's the additional revenue that you would get that you're not getting now. That's where the 50% comes from. So it's not, no one's budget will decrease by enacting laws. The 50% that's going to go back to the community is from all of the new revenue that's generated. And I would say that's also a really important component about this, right? We talk about property tax and we kind of think about commercial properties getting money back. But I would ask you to think about the senior citizens in your jurisdictions that are on fixed income and whose single highest bill every year is their property tax bill.
Wait. So I'm so confused though, because you said, yeah, if we don't do this, there's no new money. But you said that 9 million would be taken and then reduced property taxes that we're currently trying to figure out what we would have to take whatever we put in for property taxes and then reduce that whole pot by 9 million?
No. So the county will give, the state will remit, say, $2 million to Johnson County. That's $2 million of new money. You will only be allowed to use 1 million of that for programming. The other million you have to use to reduce your residents' property tax.
Okay.
And then, like I was going to say, like the senior citizens on fixed income, they're going to see a huge benefit from having their property tax bill decreased. First-time home buyers on really small tight budgets, they're going to see a benefit from having their property tax decreased. So it's also a benefit aside from preschool and the other type of funding that you can do with this money. It's a benefit that members of the community are really going to, I think, see and value.
I have a couple of questions. Thanks. First, that last part, Lisa, concerns me a little bit. I don't think that we can assume that implementing loss would reduce an individual taxpayer's property tax bill. Just because some of it does need to be used towards property tax relief, we have a lot of other pressures that may, increase all the different parts of the bill. So just to kind of temper that a little bit. But thank you for the presentation, and I'm interested to know with all the work of the Child Care Coalition that's been going on the last couple of years. I know with ARPA, the county and potentially Iowa City are planning to contribute to this wage supplement program. And I was involved in a couple of meetings early on where it was voiced that one reason that was a helpful solution was that the private child care providers need, a full range of children from infants through, up to kindergarten in order to make it pencil out for them. And that those slightly older kids in preschool kind of subsidize the enhanced care needs of the much younger kids. So I'm sure you've thought through that and talked with folks, but can you just kind of speak to how this interfaces with the wage supplement?
The wage supplement is a really amazing program, and I'm so excited to see that get off the ground because it is going to help those child care providers attract and retain more talent for their working base without raising the rates of tuition, right? That's always the issue with childcare is if you pay your workers more, then you have to raise your tuition up and charge your families more, and then it's just a never-ending cycle, and childcare gets more and more and more unaffordable. And so the wage supplement program is a program designed to pay the workers more without raising tuition up, which is excellent. The balance between making it all work at the end of the day is tricky, and it is difficult. And we have people doing amazing work providing child care and 4-year-old private preschool options in town. But the reality is that those programs often cost $1,000 to $2,000 a month, and they're simply unaffordable for a large swath of people. And our private providers also don't have to take entitled students, which is something that we as a district are very uncomfortable with. Simply because a child needs an IEP or extra support doesn't mean that they should be denied an opportunity to go to preschool. And that's just something that our private providers can't do, but that ICCSD can do. And we don't, and why it's a balance, I think on the whole, it's more important to provide an opportunity for every single 4-year-old in town, including those entitled kids. I'll tell you what, the sooner we can get kids in to school and start identifying interventions that they need, the more successful those interventions are going to be. And we can work with Grantwood AEA, we can work within the district and help those kids when they're 4 instead of when they're 5 and really get them on the path to succeed. It makes a world of difference.
Lisa, I have a question for you. At some point in the conversation, and maybe Matt was the one who mentioned it, but that there have been discussions with childcare providers. Can you talk a little bit more about what those conversations have been, what their reactions have been, and perhaps even their concerns? You and I have talked a lot, as Mary, and there's so much that's good about this, but in thinking about it, so many actually women-owned and BIPOC small business owners are childcare providers, right? That aren't the champions, that aren't the larger places. And so I'm just curious about what those conversations have been, and honestly, with whom? Has it been the larger providers? Have you been able to talk to some who are smaller, perhaps in-home? I'm just curious about the range of conversations you've had with
We
childcare.
haven't had a chance to talk to a lot of the in-home providers, but I will say Champions is providing the wrap now, but that's through an RFP process, and that absolutely would not change. And this isn't to say that Champions is going to be the child care provider as we expand. We could have multiple child care providers, and so there may, and again, it's all going to be RFP'd out because of our regulations about contracts and services.
Yeah, size and scale.
And scale. But there could be opportunities for those childcare providers, big, small, medium, to come in and provide the wrap. It would require some tweaks to their business model, but we're certainly hoping to work with everyone in the area that wants to work with us.
You also, sorry, I'm going to keep going here since I got one more question, and it's a slightly different tack. You were talking about, as the pilot was going on, you had a couple of conditions or prerequisites that you needed to be able to get this going. And among them actually was about school capacity, like physical space, right? And so I have a kiddo who goes to Alexander, right? The newest one, and it was built out, and within 2 years, it needed to be expanded just for classes, right? And I know that that's a crunch throughout the district. So I guess my really basic question is, what's the viability of actually making this happen space-wise when the district continues to grow and the need is greater for classroom space?
So we're pretty confident about the viability in terms of size and space at the schools. Many of you may be aware that we're moving towards the middle school model in 2 years. And so we're taking all of our 6th grade classrooms and we're spending $33 million into renovating our junior highs into middle schools so that they have space for the 6th graders. By transitioning those students out of our elementary school buildings, we will have significant space realizations at those buildings throughout the district.
And part of that conversation all along has been about this idea of preschool, knowing that we wanted to do more preschool, that was part of the decision making with moving 6th grade to the junior highs as well and doing middle schools, is that we wanted to do more preschool and have more ability to do that because we know the need is there, the demand is there for that full day preschool option.
And perhaps that can't be understated. And this board and boards prior to this board, everyone, it would be difficult to find an educator or a school board member who would tell you this wasn't a goal, and it isn't a goal for every community, for all of the reasons that were provided in the presentation. So the district and the board is very confident, meaning we will find the space. It is going to happen. If we have the funding, we can make this happen, because it's been in the hopes and dreams place for a long time. So we've been looking forward to this.
And you guys all supported our, second facility master plan, right, with the extension of our PEPAL and SAVE tax, and that's given us the ability to now constantly review our facilities. And so if there was a campus that was in need for some updates, of course, preschool rooms are different than, I think you used the example of the North Bend Elementary, right, that we would renovate those and we would be able to do those, or if we ran into a size issue, we have a funding source to go to for that, right? We're not asking for the physical space and structure, we're just asking for help and being able to provide the programming in that way. And And I also would just say the thing out loud, right, that we probably haven't said out loud about loss being a regressive tax, right? Lisa started with some of those, and we know that's an issue, but I think the reason we feel strongly about this being a workable solution is because of who we think it will see the most direct benefit from that solution, right? That who's not getting access to high quality preschool right now, who would benefit from that, why that can make that part of the conversation workable or viable. I mean, I don't think it's not a secret why Johnson County wouldn't have that, right? And as a regressive tax, but this would be a way for us to think about how do you have a regressive tax that works different, right? That you're able to give back, support folks that do need the support, and can give them an option and an experience that we wouldn't be able to otherwise provide. The pilot for us is going to be difficult to sustain. You saw transportation cost in there. That's not something we're doing in our current pilot. We wouldn't be able to transport the kids. We aren't sure how it's going to wash out at the end of the year to know if it's viable for us to continue to add pilot programs in this fashion because of what I talked about with child care assistance. So that's where we're coming up short, right? I mean, about trying to piece this together and trying to put a puzzle together that makes the math work, that we don't lose money on a preschool experience, because if you follow the news, right, we don't have extra money floating around, and so we can't be upside down on it. And so that's why we need help to make sure it stays viable long term and that we can continue to expand on the pilots that we have started.
Well, Matt, when you talk about long term, what's the sunset? What are you guys planning on? And then follow-up question is, does the sunset get placed by you, or do the municipalities get choice on what the sunset is?
I mean, I think not to answer for the board here, but I would say there isn't a sunset unless the state does say we're going to fully fund preschool at a 1.0, because really what we're asking your support for is for the RAP portion of that, right? And so until that's solved financially by the state, we would ask that would just continue to be in place, or if you guys would say we can no longer support that, or our municipality no longer supports that, then that may cause us to have to end that RAP experience for that group of students. But we really, like I started with, right, just have the half funding right now. We don't have the full funding, so the other half is the RAP care that is the math behind this. So I think that's what I would say to the sunset portion. But I mean, ultimately, it's going to be you guys, right? You're the decision makers on where that money goes and how it gets distributed.
And loss now automatically sunsets every 10 years. So every 10 years, the voters have to go back and reapprove it. So there is that built into it.
Can I make a comment about the regressive nature of the tax? I think, for me, one of the things that helps me square that part of it a little bit is that I see a real opportunity to continue the projects that we began with our ARPA funding. And speaking, specifically about the city of Coralville, we did not receive the same amount of funding that some of the other entities did. I mean, we only got about 3.5 million, and I see, great potential in the fact that we could continue some of the programming that we started with the ARPA funding, with these funds. And we were very mindful after we utilized the majority of our ARPA funding for filling the hole that existed in our budget. We took the last 600,000 and used that for very specific and targeted projects and programs that were geared towards addressing the impact or offsetting the impact that COVID had on marginalized and underestimated communities or populations within the city of Coralville. And Lisa, you had mentioned the exact dollar amount that you had calculated that, correct?
Which
for how much it would impact a family. I did not do. I want to give props to Project Better Together. They're the ones that calculated it. But by their calculations, a low-income family of 4 in Johnson County would see an impact of $4 a month. So $1 per person in that family is what the impact of this the additional sales tax would have on that family. Which, that can have a real impact on many families. I don't want to minimize that impact.
But if we could target the remainder of those dollars and keep investing in those community programs that are meant to lift up some of those communities, I think that could be a benefit.
Circling back to something that Supervisor Green Douglas said, have you folks had conversations with any of the other districts in the county to see if they would ask for an allocation as well for something similar?
Not super in depth. I have talked to a couple of the other superintendents. I think your example on Lone Tree, talks about how different districts decide to run their preschool programming different. I think there's still that challenge of the half day in a lot of different places. I think one thing that Iowa City set up well to do is we have the structural plan behind it as far as space and capacity, that question that we were asked, right? I'm not sure that every school district would feel as comfortable or confident in that answer to say, oh, we do know where we would put the kids if we had them all day, or that we have the appropriate classrooms or some of that. So I think that could be part of the conversation or some complications with other districts. But I think you wouldn't hear any argument from a public school district in Iowa that 4-year-old preschool would be a bad idea, right? That a full day experience, I think you'd see a lot of unity on that, I think. But as far as putting together the plan about how that works, there's going to be just unique complications depending on the district.
Lisa, just so I'm clear too, I'm wrapping my brain around a few things. So would you use each elementary building as a site?
That's the way that the space makes sense right now. And then ideally you would go to your home elementary building for that 4-year-old preschool, and then you just go to kindergarten. So it's extending your relationship with the building for next
So
year.
the funding really isn't based on where the kid's from, it's where the kid would go to school.
Well,
right?
you could do it either way, but I think what makes more sense is to do it based on where the child lives in that municipality. So even if a child lives in, for example, I live in unincorporated Johnson County, but my children attend Penn in North Liberty, I think it still makes more sense
I would agree.
to do it where the child lives instead of where they attend.
Any other questions for Matt, Lisa? Yes.
Well, just a quick question. You've mentioned transportation several times, and you've mentioned the drop-off and pickup, but you had budget for the transportation. Are you planning for a different sort of busing system for those children, like the 4-year-olds? You don't really want 4-year-olds riding the bus with 12-year-olds or something. How are you planning on that transportation issue?
Yeah, well, I think it's somewhat tied to Mitch's question, right, about how you answer where you serve the students at, and how that looks. And I think that's going to take some more conversations with the board. We started with the idea of the pilot sites at Shimmick and Wickham, thinking it would be on each elementary campus, right? And if we continue down that path, then yeah, I think that would be the next question. Then how would we stagger those routes, and what does that look like? I mean, would we just do a preschool route? Would you try to do some routing with the elementary age students? Does that look differently if it's just 5th grade students instead also the 6th grade students now on those routes? So I think we'd still have to entertain that conversation, but we would like to be able to do transportation, but transportation won't be viable for us without a solution like this proposal. That's just we run about $50,000 a route. 40,000 is what we used to say, and it's more legitimately about $50,000 a route right now.
I will say I asked that exact question a couple of months ago to Matt, and
did you get a different answer?
No, I did a good job. That was the same answer. Consistency. Yeah. But they actually can ride the same buses. There's not a different bus that has to be re-engineered for preschool students. Right. They're the same exact buses that the elementary kiddos ride. So they may ride the same bus, but it could
then
also
it's just
look
do
different.
we want them to, right? Then it just doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, I
4-year-old, 12-year-old.
I don't think that's a crazy idea, though. I mean, that was where my experience was. We all rode the bus, so it didn't matter how old we were. So I say we can't really commit to those specifics yet. These are things the board has to talk about as far as the busing and the location of the preschools, but we can tell you that there's capacity for it. So if we have the funding, it will happen because it's such a top priority for the students, which means for the community.
So for the timing of this, obviously, I'm sure you would love to have everybody go right back, put it on an agenda, and finalize it.
That's my second ask.
Okay, I was going to say, do you have a specific time frame by which you'd like everybody to officially respond, or?
Well, officially,
the sooner the better.
Yeah, the sooner the better. I mean, if you look at this timeline, which we have to follow, You know, in addition to this, right, there has to be a public education campaign about why people should vote yes, and there needs to be time for that also to happen. And so I think that we'd like to see if a municipality is going to move forward. And I'll say, the 18 million and the idea and the plan is with all 5 of you coming together and doing the same things in your own jurisdictions, but it's not dependent on all 5 moving forward. We can have 1 or 2 or 3 jurisdictions decide that it's something that they want to do and still move forward with those jurisdictions individually. But I think that the ballot language would have to be out there for the public, I would hope by the end of April or May, in order to meet these deadlines and have enough time to run an efficient campaign, which means we have a lot of work to do between now and the end of April, because there's meetings, there's deliberations on the part of you all, and then there's working on that ballot language to get it right with your city managers.
You know, I would just say to that point, when you look at the result of the PEPL and SAVE vote, we feel really confident in the community's kind of response when we've gone out with an ask. That was, I think those votes probably beat our Go Bond vote as far as percentage goes. So 75%. So we feel pretty good about sort of leading a public information campaign and getting out front and saying, we can deliver on this. We feel pretty good about the quality of programming we offer. The big problem is it's half day. Who can do, clearly we have 500 600 kids who can do that. That's pretty narrow, right? If you have 2 folks working in the family, that's not realistic for you. It's not very realistic. I mean, this is our advantage, right? We have the space. So if you're a private provider, you have to pay for your rent, pay for your utilities. So we, as a public entity, take that on, right? And we'll all get the benefit. And anybody who's been in a classroom or has kids in a classroom, you know if there's a student in that class who struggles, that takes more resources, right? And that is, and we can look at the numbers, low-income folks tend to struggle more in school. There's just more barriers there. We can't get over that. None of us are going to fix that economy. But if we can provide this head start, lots of research shows we see prison sentences. Prison goes down 20 years later. So the school to prison pipeline is interrupted for a lot of kids, right? Kids with disabilities, anybody who's a parent, that year between 4 and 5 is critical. When we get a kid in and at 5 years old, and there is a disability that's gone unnoticed for that whole 5 years, we spend the rest of their time in school trying to make up that gap. The rest of the time. That's all resources. That's all resources that have to go there. I have no dispute with those resources going there, but boy, if you can get just 1 year earlier, the impact on a kid and a family's life is immeasurable, far beyond 1 cent on every dollar. Frankly, that a lot of folks are going to be paying who don't live in our community, right? All the folks who come in for Hawkeye games are going to pay that. All the folks who come in to visit our wonderful area are going to pay that. And we're one of the very few communities in the entire state that don't already have this, right? So really, we're just catching up with a lot of other folks who have this revenue to spend. So just as a special ed teacher and somebody who has seen those kids on the back end of that thing, I can tell you a lot of kids get to high school and it's too late. A lot of kids show up to kindergarten and you've lost that year. And you, like I said, you spend the whole rest of the time making up those gaps. So the impact you can have is far beyond the money. Yes, the data is there to show you there will be an economic impact, and that is important. But the quality of life impact you have on somebody, and that's where, and again, we have great community partners, but they don't have to take kids with disabilities, and it is not a real viable economic model for them to do that. I can tell you, out of our $200 million budget, we spend an extra almost $10 million a year out of that budget just for kids with disabilities because the federal government doesn't fill in what it by law is supposed to. And I'm proud every single time we make that vote, and I bring this up at the board table, every time we make that vote, that this is a deficit that we are running because we do the right things for kids with disabilities in this district. But we can't do that at 4 years old because you still, as a family, can only go there half days. And that, I don't think is very realistic for most folks. So thank you for the economic numbers. I just think there's a human piece of this that's really hard to calculate, with those numbers, especially considering the ask, $4 a month for a family of 4. Well, if you can get full day preschool for $525 a month, do the math there. I mean, that's anybody with kids. Yeah, that's half of what it would cost you. So that's a real impact for those families, which those of you, anybody who's been in that situation knows that frees you up mentally, spiritually to do a lot for your family. So
I nominate JP to head up the committee to educate the public.
I'd be happy to do that.
And if I could put a bow around it. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have one more thing, Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just because I want you to be aware of something for city governments, and that's called local control, which we seem to be losing from the federal and state government. And I know there's rumblings at the state about changing LOST to be all over the state, the whole state, and that they will take out percentages for various state involvement. Clean water, it's called. And I do have that concern, I think we all do who help with city, that we don't always have control, and there's some uncertainties there. Thank you.
I have a process question on the timeline. So I think that if
Sorry, Derek. If the ballot language needs to be finalized by, April, May, so we could run a good campaign. So for the cities, that would also mean that 40% what we're spending it on, right? I mean, we have to say what we're doing with it.
You do have to identify on your ballot language what you're going to use it for. But much like when we do a bond, it doesn't have to be, penny for penny.
Sure.
But you do have to have some general parameters so that the voters understand what the permissible uses are.
Because I could see that being a challenge in that time frame for cities to decide what we would be allocating that other 40%.
I do think that there's room, and that's where the city managers will be really good with knowing that. But I think there's room to say the revenue generated will be used towards food insecurity, affordable housing, childcare, and other initiatives targeted towards, these marginalized groups. So, something like that. That still you have plenty of flexibility into getting down on the nitty gritty details, because I think that would be difficult to budget out, $2 million for Iowa City, exactly how it's going to be used line item in 3 months.
Or you can just give it all to us.
We are also, we're happy to take all of it if you're unsure how to
Let me
spend
first
it.
say thank you for not asking for all of it.
Make that pie a little bigger.
I know you're being flippant, but I do have a process concern for taking Lone Tree as an example, because they already have a LOST, and I suppose that it's been a while since I've looked at the language. I suppose their city council could choose to help fund Lone Tree's universal pre-K. I don't know that they would, because that would be popping a hole in their own budget, what their expectations are. But just going back to the fact that there are 11 districts serving the county and figuring out how to make it equitable for everyone, and knowing if there's interest from other districts, whether they want to follow your lead or come up with something similar. So yeah, that does give me pause.
It is difficult to balance that with what probably seems like strident comments that, for example, I'm making. But I would just remind everyone that public education is reaching that point of an emergency, and we really need all hands on deck to do whatever we can. And if we can get all these districts to buy in, great. In the meantime, we've got the fourth largest district in the state of Iowa here. We can serve 14,000, a district, a very large district. If this isn't it, we got to come up with something. And we need the joint entities to figure out what that's going to be now. That's why we're like, how about we do it as soon as you can? We really mean it. And I understand the difficulty that you're going to have with getting your line item figured out, but we can't say it strongly enough that public education needs this funding because we're trying to maintain our excellent status and be the fabric of society. So it's getting real hard to afford to do that. So we need everything we can get, and this just seemed like, as you called it, a great opportunity.
Well, I think the way that's going to play out is the breakdown of the integrity of our public system, right? The public system is going to start to break down in the state of Iowa. Once vouchers go through and school choice becomes available, whether it's now school choice for 4-year-olds, whether it's school choice for high school kids, specialized programming, the fabric of the institution of public schools, which I think a lot of us committed to that work, think it's the foundation of our democracy, is going to break down, right? And so that's where the emergency comment comes from, is that this is not a next year conversation. This is a right now conversation. The first week we're hearing they're going to push vouchers through the Senate, right? And so whatever your political leanings on that are, fine. But I think that's where our urgency is coming from, is if we want to hold the integrity of the system, we have to do things like these easy wins, like 4-year-old preschool, that we should be giving to our families and to our communities. We have to make sure that our public schools stay strong, and that when choice comes in, the choice is public schools. Because if we don't do those things, we are going to lose it. We're going to lose it.
So quick question. So upon the municipality putting this issue on our ballot, who bears responsibility of spreading the education piece and the promotion of this item on the ballot, and then who will be communicating and fielding questions and or objections? Would it be up to the municipality, or would it be someone from the district?
If a municipality or more than one chose to go forward with approving the ballot language and putting it on the ballot, I would envision a campaign similar to the Go Bond campaign, getting formed of interested stakeholder groups. I believe, for example, I think that Iowa City Downtown Business Partnership is supportive of this, and forming a coalition. Mary Masher might be hiding in the back there, but of people who are passionate about the issue, who would be advocates to go out and educate the community about why they should vote yes. I would certainly think in your elected capacities, you will field emails on this. But I anticipate a structured campaign run by an outside entity would be the ones to organize the educational component.
And would it be consistent among all municipalities, or would each municipality have their own look and identity to each campaign?
It would be nice if we could umbrella it under one campaign for ease, but each municipality is likely going to maybe have some variations on ballot language. And so there'll have to be some targeted education towards voters depending on what municipality they live in and what that municipality's language is on the ballot. We certainly don't want someone in North Liberty thinking they're voting for something that's only going to happen in Coralville.
Mayor Chief, do you have a question? No. Okay. Lisa and Matt, thank you for bringing this up. I want to leave with a parting comment. And Mary Kate, you've done an excellent job, like every time you talked tonight, to sense this urgency on this. Because if we feel like we can't get this done, we just have to. So a comment that I wrote down in the beginning of this was that Project Better Together was a result of something that we all had to do as a community. And we figured out what was needed, and we all pitched in to do it. We found ways to eliminate redundancy and eliminate multiple asks by the same entity to go to all of these places. We still need to have a lot of education on this. So the question on the timing rod was one that I had written down as well. If you are able to, as an entity, get the district on your work sessions in February at the latest. January is going to be really, really tough. We're going through a budget. By the way, every member of the Johnson County Board of Supervisors has caffeine in front of them here today. They know what I'm talking about. January will be tough for us as a municipality, but by February, I would love to see this happen across the county. So be ready to do that in February. But we are all right now targets of revenue restrictions. And what Better Together has taught us is that while we can't be picking at each other and walling each other off, we kind of have to be together figuring this out. So this is going to be a difficult conversation at a really quick pace, involving a lot of people. And as you said, Lisa, having this on the November ballot makes this special. It's also your elections for board members. These are local people that are on the ballot. They're not national candidates that are out there. So the timing of this is important in that way as well. Is it okay if we move on to the next topic?
I have one question.
Go ahead. Yeah. Go
So
ahead.
sorry.
V was leaning just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to beat Lisa as often as I can. Given the time sensitiveness, I mean, this is my first meeting. Hi, hello. But I don't think technically there's going to be a meeting in between enough time. I mean, should there be some sort of committee or something that is formulated for each member to check in? Or, I mean, I just feel like there must be some process, although I could be speaking out of turn. It's a question. I'm curious. Is there a way to
One of our agenda
respond?
items is the last. When's our next meeting? It's 2 months from now.
April.
It is April 17th.
April 17th. So we're well past that. This group will not be of any benefit in that conversation between now and April, unless a group of folks is organized to make that happen.
Which, given the timeliness of it, seems like setting that up in this meeting would be advantageous.
I was gonna say, could we spearhead leading a group if there would be a volunteer from each entity, and then we could connect with them on a regular basis?
Yeah, can you reach out to all of us entities so we can take some time to get a person there
we'll
for
do
you?
that. Yep.
How's that,
Thank
V?
you. That's great. Thank
Okay.
you.
And then my question was, so we meet on Fridays to set our agendas for the next week. So if we were going to put this on really quickly, the way you're asking, who is the person that we would contact, one of you two, to say, we need you and this is the date we've got?
Yep.
Can
you just contact
can
me
you-
and we'll get the people there.
You'll have somebody there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It'll be a Wednesday.
A Wednesday? Great.
I'll make a recommendation that the chair or the vice chair from the board of supervisors be on the committee, and that you guys sit for a whole year on the UCC.
And being that you're just no longer on.
Sounds like county business at another
Hot
meeting.
potato.
Yes. Is it okay if we move on?
Yes.
You guys,
Thank you.
thank you all for this discussion, Lisa and Matt, for your time here. The next item on here is, I'm going to pass this down to Counselor Siddig for us, an update on transit studies.
Yeah, and I just asked for this to be on the agenda because we had a discussion about it at the last joint entities meeting, and I wanted to make sure everyone was aware that MPOJC has decided to move forward with an RFP for to study rapid transit bus as an alternative to rail. And if you are crafting language for a lost ballot initiative, feel free to throw public transportation in there because I think that would be a good use of funds. But I think that I suggest you stay in touch with your MPO representatives just to hear what's going on with that moving forward.
Thank you, Eric. Next item are general updates from entities. If there's an item or two from your jurisdictions that you want to report out on. Everybody's kind of exhausted from this first part. Sean, I think I'll do this in less than 2 hours. Does anybody have anything? If not, we'll move on. Okay, the item for our next meeting, Tracy, you said it's April 17th. That's a Monday. Who's up? You know that in the rotation.
University Heights.
Outstanding. Okay. All right, with that, is there any other business to bring before this group?
Yeah, Monday is MLK. We will be celebrating. We will have a march starting at the Eastdale Plaza at 9:30, marching over to Mercer, where there will be an event, a program going on from 10 to 12, and lunch will be served. MLK Day is the only federal holiday designated as a national day of service. So even though you get that day off, we ask that you come out. It's encouraged for all Americans to volunteer their and improve their communities. So we have activity service projects and a program that's going on with guest speakers, praise dance, spirituals. We welcome you to come out, all of you, and to bring your children, to get your children involved and to educate your children. It's so very much needed when we talk about MLK and civil rights movements. A lot of things have happened, so we ask that you just please participate. So I'll see everybody here and their children on Monday at 9:30 at the Eastdale Plaza,
And the programming again at Mercer's at what time?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
10 a.m.
I wrote it wrong, so that's what I did.
We'll march right into the program.
Got it.
Roseanne, where is this,
Mercer Park.
where is this publicized? Is there anywhere in line to share?
The city has put something out today. It's on Facebook, and if you need an email, I can send you the flyer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Roseanne. Anything else? All right. Next is an adjournment. Did we motion out of this thing? Did we motion into it?
Move adjourned.
How about we just?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Meeting adjourned. I'm exhausted.
Good to see you, Mayor.